I have a question for you all. Out of all the videos I do, TBRs, monthly wrap-ups, reading vlogs, the occasional travel vlog now, the recipes that I haven't done for a while, but they were there for a while, book tags, what videos do I make that are your favourite? Because I want to start doing more of them. Obviously, TBRs and wrap-ups I can't really do more of because there's only 12 months in a year. Hello everyone, it's Jade from Boho Bookworm. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you what I read throughout July. I read in total 5 books, completed 5 books in July. I'm still slowly working my way through The Flat Share, which was my physical book of the month by Beth O'Leary, and I'm absolutely loving it now. It's really enjoyable, but I'm not yet finished. I'm on the final few chapters, so that's going to be included in my August wrap-up. July, 5 books. One was a 5-star read for me. The others were just like, some were shit, some were alright. I'll start with the first book that I finished throughout the month, and that was Hostage by Clare Mackintosh, which was one of my most anticipated releases. I was quite hesitant to pick this book up because I am a nervous flyer, and this book is about, well, you know, a flight and a hostage, and someone is trying to take over the plane and making sure that it's not going to reach its destination. So I was like, that's scary. But I do not foresee myself getting on board a flight anytime soon thanks to COVID. So I was like, let's give it a go. In a way, I think that Clare Mackintosh was very clever bringing a book like this out with that premise, all set on a plane during a pandemic, because I think all of us are missing flights and stuff, but counteract that with being a scary thriller. Hey ho, good to go. In the beginning of the book, there's this part that goes something like, where else are people trapped together with no way out for over 24 hours? And that would be prison. So that's how she is describing being on a flight, which I think is really clever. I mean, obviously planes are fun. You get to watch like all the nice movies, you get to get pissed on wine, thank you altitude. And you know what? I don't actually think that plane food is that bad. Besides scrambled eggs are always weird. Hostage is this really suspenseful, kind of like locked room thriller that I really, really enjoyed. So the book opens on this character called Mina, who's a flight attendant. She's about to board this 20-hour flight from London to Sydney. She's actually really relieved to be going to work because her marriage and her life at home is just crumbling, so she's just excited to get away, get that break that she really needs. Once the plane takes off, she receives this anonymous note informing her that someone is not going to allow this plane to reach its destination, forcing her to comply with their demands, and they know exactly how to do that. They're bribing her. And suddenly, everything that she was so desperate to leave behind just hours ago, she wants more than anything in the world. I really love, in general, not just with this book, but the research that Clare Mackintosh puts into her books, I think is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, in previous books, she writes characters that are police people or detectives and stuff like that, which is, you know, she's very good at that because she did spend, I think, a decade in the police force or something like that. But even with regards to the procedures of being a flight attendant and flying and piloting and all that stuff, like, she really made the effort to research that flat out in this book. You could just tell the level of research that was done while you were reading the pages. Something I was really worried about with this book was the fact that it was going to be taking place on a plane, one spot, in 20 hours. I always feel like books that are set within a certain time period and in one place can get really rushed, or like trying to cram too much in such a short space of time. However, I was really surprised with this one. It did an excellent job and fed in stories of all the different passengers and their lives, and had bits before getting on board the plane and stuff like that. So it made us connect with all the characters, and also kind of just evened the book out, balanced it, so that we weren't just trying to like ram all this information of 20 hours into our head. And honestly, I don't know what this book did to me, but nearing the end, I was so emotional. Like, maybe it was that time of the month or something, but I was on the verge of tears. Maybe it boils down to the fact that you go through the emotions that all of these characters are feeling, and what their final words are to their loved ones as they like scramble for their phones, trying to get the Wi-Fi to work to say their final goodbyes and stuff. Like, it just like bit me right to the core. There was this visceral fear that was embedded into the book, you know, like Mina had this awful choice that she had to make, like choose her loved ones that she adores, save their lives, or the lives of every single passenger on board the plane. You know, everyone's got a life worth living, and that's the thing that she has to try and grapple with. Plus, okay, no spoilers, I promise, but that ending, I was satisfied enough with the way that the book was about to end. But then it gave us this phenomenal epilogue, and my jaw was on the floor. I think The thing that kind of made me knock a star off this book, I gave this book a 4-star review, was the fact that I listened to an audio and I wish they'd given us a male narrator to narrate the male scenes or the male chapters in this book. I just found the voice very similar and a bit too repetitive when it was changing characters. My other massive qualm with the book in general, not just the audiobook, is that I wish the reason for the hijacking was better. It kind of felt a bit anticlimactic. It made the rest of the book, which was really, really vivid and a strong story, kind of pale in comparison to the rest of the book. Then I read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, which has been on my list for years. It is an absolute timeless Gothic classic, written I think in 1938. It's known as a quintessential literature masterpiece. And what surprised me with it was just how timeless the book felt in the writing. I also like how it isn't a romance as I thought it would be at all. At its core, Rebecca is a psychological suspense novel, which is my favourite genre. Yet it's also this kind of slow burning mystery with this eerie, dark, ominous tone to it. It's a ghost story. Just so unique and fun for its time. Couple all that with this domestic noir setting, it was just something beautiful to behold. There was this really easy writing style that counteracted with the rich, vivid detail of the book. I did feel like it was rife with emotions and creepy at times. I just feel like it didn't have that excitement for me. Like, to be honest, I kind of don't feel like much really happened in the story. We follow our nameless narrator, which is quite a cool aspect of the book. She's this really inexperienced, wimpy, innocent young woman who meets and falls head over heels in love with this rich, successful, handsome widower, Maxim, and he kind of whisks her away to his country estate in Cornwall. And this place is called Manderley, which is run by this really creepy, intimidating housekeeper. Her name's Mrs. Danvers. Maxim's ex-wife, Rebecca, she absolutely worshipped her. So she's kind of hell-bent on making life as difficult as possible for our nameless narrator. The estate feels haunted by Rebecca's lingering presence. And at the end of the day, Rebecca does steal the spotlight, which is why I think, very cleverly in 1938 or whatever it was, the book is named Rebecca and our main narrator didn't get a name because basically she didn't really deserve one. Rebecca just completely overshadowed her. Our nameless narrator is super different to Rebecca. She's timid, she's shy, she's not used to this luxurious kind of lifestyle. She makes really questionable decisions, like she befriends the housemaid, I think, compared to Rebecca's palpable, confident personality. It's just shockingly different. It's dark, it's deeply disturbing. It's a really moody read, and I'm glad that I read it to say that I did, and now I can watch a TV show on Netflix, which I've been really excited for. But as is with many classics for me, it's just not my type of thing. But I feel as a reader, as a lover of books, I need to give classics a go more often, because I always just tend to swerve in the direction of these new and exciting fast-paced thrillers. But all novels stem from the classics, so I want to invest some time into the classics as often as I can as well, which isn't very often because I stem towards thrillers. But I do what I can. I gave Rebecca a 3 out of 5-star review. Then I listened to a free audible original called One Chance by Caroline Overington. So I'm quite a fan of Caroline Overington. I have interviewed her on my podcast before. I think she's great. So the fact that this book, the premise, it's all set around the pandemic. So that obviously excited me because I'm finally at the stage where the pandemic isn't completely triggering my anxiety anymore. And also it was free. So I was like, okay, gotta give it a go. So it's the story of this old man called Paul, and he had this factory that he's kind of adapted into a face mask making company, which has kind of really boomed during the pandemic. He's known as the typical Mr. Nice Guy, and people, after the success of his business, they start kind of filtering back into his life. They all seem to have funny little motives behind them, and it could threaten his family and his business. I think as an author, Overington does such a good job at keeping us engaged as the reader. Her writing just flows and it's so easy to read. Again, as with Rebecca, it just had this really dark and ominous tone. It made you really intrigued by the different characters it introduced to us along the way. On a whole, they seem like quite relatively normal people, but something just didn't feel quite right, and that was the fun element of the book, trying to figure them out. What bothered me about this book was I don't know if the author got the ending that she really wanted to down onto the paper. It just felt rushed and swollen with the need for more. I mean, while the story itself was fine, I don't really know if I'd be able to tell you the point of the story or the meaning behind it. It kind of just missed that overall reveal that ties everything together. You know, in books where suddenly everything just makes sense and you're like, wow, that's the message behind this book. This is why I've read it. And it kind of all makes sense, adds up, and you suddenly appreciate the whole story. And I don't really feel like I got that from this book with the ending that it gave us. It just felt a little bit random and unfocused. Don't get me wrong, there was nothing overly bad about the book, but there was just nothing overly exciting either. Honestly, when I paused the audiobook and got on with my day at work and stuff, there was nothing really compelling me to pick it back up. It lacked that suspense and the thrill that makes you want to pick it back up, and that's kind of the only way I can really describe it. So unfortunately, I only gave this one a 2 out of 5-star review. Now for my 5-star read of the month, Wine Girl by Victoria James. Oh, this book was gorgeous. I loved it from the cover. I bought it while I was doing Dry July, which was quite hard. It's about America's youngest female sommelier, and she recounts her journey through her traumatic childhood to where she is today. This toxic, misogynistic world of spectacular fine wine and Michelin star restaurants. It's eye-opening, it's maddening, a heartbreaking read that just, it's going to make your blood boil if you read this book, and at the same time it makes you appreciate wine in a whole new way. It's dark, entertaining, well written, and as I was mentioning earlier about a message behind a book, this message, what I got from it was the real meaning of resilience. This woman put up with so much. I had no idea how hard it must be for females, particularly in such a male-dominated industry, even in today's world. I mean, the only thing I can compare it to, and that it reminded me of, was American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis, and oh by that book. American Psycho is the most disgusting filth, never been published book in the world, in my opinion. But let's not go there right now. If I can find it, I will link my video about American Psycho, absolutely bashing it down below. It might have actually been a podcast episode on my old podcast, Books and Booze, which I really should pick back up at some point. Anyway, what I meant by that was it really angered me. Like, it makes me just want to do something about it. Like, I'm not a feminist. A lot of my friends are, and I think it's, you know, you do you, that's great. I'm not the most political kind of person, so, but this book bloody riled me up. I was just like, so yes, 5 out of 5 stars for me. Wine Girl, non-fiction, memoir, gorgeous. Lastly, we've got You'll Never Know Dear by Hallie Ephron. So from the cover of this book, it's got this like creepy broken porcelain doll's head on the front cover, and with that title, with that kind of like lullaby feel to it, and the doll, I was just like, this is gonna freak the absolute shit out of me. I was expecting it to be a lot scarier than it was. It's a book, sorry, I'm getting another eye infection. I don't know what's going on with my eyes right now. Hence no makeup today. But okay, so this is a book about 2 sisters, Lissy, who's 7, and Janie, who's 4. And they're outside in their garden playing with their porcelain dolls. This little puppy runs past and basically distracts Lissy. She chases after it, and when she returns, her little sister and her little sister's doll are gone. So now it's like many years later. Lissy's got a daughter of her own. Life's moved on. The case went completely cold. But one thing that hasn't changed is Lissy, to this day, is just guilt-ridden, wanting to understand what happened to her sister. Every year they put this advert out trying to find the porcelain doll, because it's like a one-of-a-kind doll, and it's got this massive reward on it for anyone with information. The ad was never ever answered for all these years until this year. There is a plane. So now is the first clue in a decades-old case into what really happened that day and where Janie is. Someone knows the truth about what happened, but they are desperate to keep it hidden. Like I said, you know, I found this book addictive and it was fun to read, but the cover was really deceptive. You know, obviously I'd read the premise of this book, so I knew it wasn't going to be this like horror book about creepy haunted porcelain dolls. But I guess I'd expected it to be a bit more of a thriller than it was. It was definitely more of a mystery. I found it quite slow paced and very predictable. There was very little suspense in it at all. And overall, the outcome to me just wasn't satisfying. I started out really enjoying the book, and then it became this kind of really slow burning whodunit. It all kind of just went downhill, and quite frankly, I got bored. So unfortunately, this is a book that I'm gonna forget. I pretty much already have, so I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. Right, so they are the books that I have read in July. Let me know what your top book that you read throughout July was. I'd love to know. And if I've enticed you to pick up Wine Girl, which was the best book I read last month, then well done, do it. Get a copy now because it is so worth it, especially if you're a feminist. I will talk to you all soon. Bye.